Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel today. We've got some more movement with CRPA lawsuits, and to talk about it, we've brought in CRPA volunteer president, Chuck Michel. Chuck, how are you today?
I'm good. Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being with us. So we do want to talk about the Rody v. Bonta lawsuit. But before we get into that, I just wanted to remind you guys we are climbing that ladder as far as subscribers are concerned. You can really help out with the algorithms by subscribing to these videos, also liking and sharing them. It helps get this information out to as many people as possible. We are trying to inform as many people as possible so that we can get this word out so that people can take it to the ballot box when it's time to vote for our legislators. So Chuck, delving into this, we've got some more movement with the Rody case. We had Judge Benitez last week request some more arguments for the case. So can you go ahead and walk us through that? What happened down there, and what kind of indications did we have from the judge on this case?
Okay, so keep in mind, first of all, that there's 4 cases in front of Judge Benitez right now on the Second Amendment. He's got CRPA's Rody case, CRPA's Duncan, which is the magazine ban of over 10 round magazines. He's got an assault weapon challenge, and he has a billy club challenge. The assault weapon, magazine, and billy club have all had judgments entered, and then they went up on appeal. The Supreme Court said Bruin, and so they were all bottlenecked up in the Ninth Circuit until Bruin came down. Then once Bruin came down, all those cases were sent back down to Judge Benitez to reconsider his ruling, because he ruled based on the Heller standard, the 2008 Heller case, rather than the 2022 Bruin case. Now, they're supposed to be the same. Bruin just confirmed Heller, but some courts had really twisted Heller the wrong way. And frankly, some of them are twisting Bruin the wrong way now. But anyway, so the Ninth Circuit said, hey, the law has changed. We'll send all these back down to Judge Benitez and have you reevaluate your ruling and reissue another ruling now based on what Bruin said. So that's what he's been doing. Now, the difference with the Rody case was that was up on a motion for preliminary injunction. Remember, the Rody case challenges California's ban on you have to have an ID to buy ammo. You can't buy it online. There's all kinds of restrictions about taking it interstate. You can't even ranges can't. There's a ton of regulations that make it very difficult to get ammo and be able to use it wherever you want to. So that's caused a lot of problems for a lot of people who don't, the DOJ's records on criminal database is a fiasco. It's a mess. Lots of errors. So lots of people get dinged as prohibited when in fact they're not, or they don't know there's a guy with a similar name. It's the same as NICS. There's the same kinds of problems doing a background check as there is on a firearm, except that you're trying to do a background check on ammunition much more often because you have to buy ammo more often than you buy a firearm. So he has been working on all 4 of those cases, and he realized that Rody was still in the injunction phase. He wants to get it to a judgment so that he's done with it. It goes up on appeal. The state will appeal if it loses, and I'm pretty sure they're going to. But it doesn't come back down to him for rehearing on a preliminary injunction, which then moves towards a permanent injunction, which then moves towards a judgment. He just wants to take it all the way home to a judgment, so that's what goes up to the Ninth Circuit, along with the judgments on the other 3 cases. So he called us into court and he says, I want you guys, what do we need to do to take this preliminary injunction, convert it into a motion for summary judgment, or convert it into whatever we need to so that I can issue a judgment? And the DOJ started basically begging, effectively, to please let us put some more expert declarations in to show that there are historical analogs to ammunition background checks that would justify this under the Second Amendment. And he was skeptical. He's like, what new stuff are you going to put in? And they didn't really know. But he's covering his base. He wants to let the state make its record so they can't go up on the Ninth Circuit and say, oh, we didn't get to put in the evidence we needed to prove our case. So he's going to let them put it in, and then we'll get a chance to respond and put in whatever declarations we think are necessary. and this is where CRPA membership comes in. We really do need help because one of the things, the DOJ, the state, will run anything they can think of to try and knock this case off the tracks. And so what they're trying to claim now is that, oh, well, we acknowledge that there are problems with people who aren't getting approved to purchase ammunition, but CRPA, your members aren't having that problem, so you don't have standing to challenge this law. So this late in the game, they're trying to drag out a standing argument that we don't have the legal standing to challenge the law in the first place. Well, that's poppycock, because a lot of our 40,000 or so members and supporters have had problems. That's one of the reasons we filed the lawsuit in the first place, is because so many people were complaining. But now we've got to prove it in court with evidence. And that means we need to get CRPA members who have had a problem buying ammunition or transporting ammunition or keeping ammunition or whatever horror story you may have. Please reach out to us. And maybe we can put Costas's email address in the comments below, and let us know about your story, because I want to submit, a stack of declarations, and it's nothing particularly complicated. You just have to say, here's the problem I had, and we'll submit it to the judge, and then the judge will see we have plenty of CRPA members that have had these problems, and we have standing. He knows it already, but we just don't want, this is about making a record for appeal. We don't want to give the Ninth Circuit any excuse to say that the case shouldn't be ruled on the merits. So we need folks to get involved and tell us your horror stories about how hard it's been for you to buy ammunition in California.
Well, yeah, I kind of correct me if you get a different feeling than I do here. It really feels like Judge Benitez wants to bring some resoluteness or finality to these Second Amendment lawsuits that have been put on his desk.
He absolutely does. He's a senior judge. He wants to retire.
Right.
He's been working towards that. He's been, moving that way for a long time. I think he has this and some other cases. And interestingly enough, he said at the hearing, he apologized for things taking so long, and he explained he needs to have eye surgery. And during the hearing, he had to get like this sometimes to read the papers in front of him. So, and then he explained that he's basically reading every declaration, every source that's cited in a declaration. He's doing his homework. He's reading everything that the state submitted, and then he's probably going to address it in his ruling, but he's actually having a hard time reading some of this stuff. So that's one of the reasons it's taking so long. But there's also just so many volumes of stuff that the state has pushed into the record to try and just paper him to death and have something to point to in the Ninth Circuit when it gets there, or Supreme Court. But so I think that's what's really been taking him so long. And he just has a busy calendar. He still has, a lot of other cases that, as a senior judge in the United States District Court, they count on you to move it along and help the other judges. And so I'm sure he's just had a ton of work. So I think, though, by the end of summer, I say that recognizing that, whoever knows, but I think by the end of summer, we'll probably have these rulings.
Well, and before we get into any kind of predictions, that maybe this is a good time to kind of clear up. I don't necessarily want to say a point of confusion, something that, I've definitely been ignorant to when it comes to specific lawsuits. Can you explain exactly how that works? Not even necessarily, well, I guess we can necessarily put it specifically on Rody. So we had Rody at the federal district court, but we had an appeal for an injunction on the Ninth Circuit. Is that how this is working?
We filed Rody in the United States District Court. That's the trial court. That's your first stop. Then you go up to a 3-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and if you and sometimes and happens in guns 2A cases a lot more, you go to the en banc panel, which is an 11-judge panel, and then you can go to the Supreme Court. The en banc, the first level of appeal you're entitled to as a matter of right. The second level for en banc, or the next level, the Supreme Court, that's up to those courts if they want to hear those cases. You don't have a right to have your case heard there. That's discretionary on their part. So in Rody, we were still in the Ninth Circuit in front of the 3-judge panel, but it was stayed while they waited for Bruin and Duncan to be decided by the Supreme Court. When Bruin came down, they took the Duncan case. They said, Duncan had gone en banc, and we had lost en banc after winning at the 3-judge panel. The Supreme Court said, we're vacating that en banc opinion and remanding this case down from the Supreme Court for reconsideration by the Ninth Circuit. Then the Ninth Circuit said, well, we're not going to reconsider it. We're going to remand it down to the district court and let them reconsider it first and then come back to us. And there was several dissents from that, because some of the judges recognized all you're going to do is drag this case out for another 2 years. But the other judges, I think, wanted to do that. And so they remanded it back to Judge Benitez.
But take the Junior Sport Magazine lawsuit, for example. We tried to get a preliminary injunction on AB 2571 in the federal district court, right? And they denied it. And we ended up appealing to the Ninth Circuit for that preliminary injunction as well. Does that take the entire lawsuit up to the Ninth Circuit, or just the appeal for preliminary injunction?
It's called an interlocutory appeal. You're not appealing a judgment, you're appealing a ruling. And in this case, it was a ruling on a preliminary injunction. And that's the process. You file a lawsuit, and then you file a motion for a preliminary injunction. Depending on what happens there, that ruling can go up. But if it goes up, the trial court can theoretically keep going on, because you're going towards a permanent injunction and a judgment. So you have to, there could be a 2-track. Usually they stop in the trial court while the appeal is litigated on the preliminary injunction, because it's going to be dispositive of a lot of issues that you don't need to figure out at the trial court level if the appellate court's going to figure it out for you. So we're just on the junior sports, we're just up on the preliminary injunction ruling. And then once the court says we're right or we're wrong on the law, on the First Amendment, it will send it back. Now, a lot of times what happens is, if you win on a preliminary injunction, the writing's on the wall. You're going to get a permanent injunction and a judgment. And that's kind of what Judge Benitez did. He accelerated things from the preliminary injunction to permanent injunction and judgment. But we'll have to go back down to the district court in the junior shooters case, and then the district court will decide what to do. And a lot of times they do the same thing Judge Benitez did. They combine the preliminary and the permanent and the judgment all into one hearing, and then issue a final judgment and a permanent.
And that is what I was going to try to draw it back to. It kind of made it sound like that's what Judge Benitez was trying to do, bringing a final judgment to that at the district court. So I guess that leaves us, I wouldn't be surprised if, people out there had pools on this. Any sort of indication on whether or not these decisions were going to be dropped at the same time individually?
He didn't specifically say that, but sort of the sense that the folks who were in the courtroom got was that that's what he's going to do. He's going to drop them all at the same time.
Gotcha. Well, anything else that you may have picked up from being down there and talking with Judge Benitez? Or are we just kind of at the point where, we're sitting here, we've done our due diligence, we have presented everything, and now it's time for him to do his part and then create a decision?
Yeah, he was basically, this was sort of a case management conference. He set some schedules. He said the state has to submit their declarations within 30 days. If we have any, we can submit them in 30 days. We have 15 days after the state submits theirs to comment on theirs, which we will. But there's just, with the Bruin case in the mix here, all these cases have taken way longer than a case typically does. Not that a case goes fast; they all take years. But this case has been going on for I can't remember when we filed. It's been at least 6 or 7 years since we've been litigating these cases. But that's because they were working their way up, and then they were frozen while we waited for that Supreme Court ruling in Bruin. And then the Supreme Court sent it all back down. Then the Ninth Circuit sent it back. So it's a very tortuous and circuitous route through the court system, which most cases don't have to make.
Well, we're certainly going to keep our eye on it. We're going to keep our eye on the Duncan case and the other 2 cases that Benitez has as well. Can't wait for those to drop. It's hard to imagine that we're going to see a bad decision, although it's always a possibility. And by bad decision, I mean, different than the first one he dropped that ruled in favor of our Second Amendment rights. So Chuck, I really appreciate you coming on. We're gonna stay tuned for this and hopefully talk to you about it again real soon.
Look forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. And as Chuck mentioned, we are going to have a link below. If you do have any stories that have been difficult for you to purchase ammunition, like he said, it's going to really help our case. If you want to share those stories, go ahead and hit that link and share it there. There will be further instruction, I'm sure. And as always, if you like this content and you want to continue to see it, please like, share, and subscribe to the videos. It always helps with the algorithms to get this message out there. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.